On the evening of January the 12th, disaster struck Haiti, already one of the world's poorest countries. Over 200,000 people died in the earthquake. This was a tragedy of biblical proportions. In just 40 seconds, 1.5 million people were left homeless and thousands of children were left as orphans. The country's capital, Port-au-Prince, bore the brunt of the catastrophe. People were in dire need of emergency medical care, food and water. The story of Haiti after the earthquake is a disaster on a colossal scale, and one of the ironies in this modern day and age is that the media could get live satellite pictures out of Haiti long before food and water could be delivered to those people who needed it. The 7.0 earthquake that devastated Haiti, leaving a massive humanitarian crisis in its wake, received sustained media coverage from around the world.
A major disaster may be unfolding right now in Haiti, hit today by a powerful earthquake.
Now to the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. George.
Good afternoon from Port-au-Prince.
Reporters from everywhere descended onto Haiti. But why is the world's media so interested in disasters? I spoke to Northern Ireland's Daily Mirror editor, Jerry Miller.
Events happen and people are interested in reading about events. Usually it's life-changing events in which other people die or injured, or there's a humanitarian disaster. So I don't think it's anything that the media are interested in. I'd say the media reflects the public's interest in these matters.
Of all the possible natural disasters, earthquakes are made for television. They play to the strengths of the medium with dramatic pictures. There's an easy idea of what has gone wrong and what needs done. Claire Hanna of Concern says it's remarkable the size of the media horde arriving in Haiti, just hours after the impact.
Days of rolling news, it's not good enough to, report 2 days afterwards and they'll want people in immediately. And yes, there were, in those few days, I know, the calls as we tried to get our teams in, and, there was like, how are they there with a full crew, within X number of hours, when there was an absolute scramble to get onto any plane you could get onto.
The New Republic found that some American networks sent scores of staff to Haiti. Senior editor Noam Schreiber argued, given the sheer number of reporters descending on the country, it's hard to believe the reporters aren't at least delaying the arrival of relief workers and supplies. We have Noam on the line from Washington. So Noam, do you think some journalists caused difficulty by being in Haiti?
Yeah, I think they ended up doing harm because there were only so many flights, only so many ways to distribute material, and by virtue of them taking those flights and kind of clogging up some of those distribution channels, made it harder for the people, the victims down there, to get the food and water that was being distributed, and it made it harder for relief workers to get down there.
Okay, but the world's media need to report on disasters. So what's your solution?
We use a pool system for coverage of the present. I think there should be a pool with a kind of baseline or a core number of reporters getting the word out from Haiti. I think we journalists should be able to come to some understanding that people's lives are probably more important than us getting to Haiti first.
We'll have to leave it there, Noam. Thank you.
All right, take care.
So is the media doing an injustice, arriving before aid and in huge numbers?
Not surprised that they're first. It's not wrong that they're first. It's not because they're instead of aid. It's the aid agencies just take so long to get their wheels in motion, and reporters are a luxury, and they're sent out. CNN and Sky, who send out their reporters around the world, aren't there to try and get aid for Haiti. Be that as it may, and that's a result. They're out there to get the story quickly and beat the competitors and get the viewers and all that stuff. It's just part of the job. So yes, I don't think it would get in the way. I don't think anybody would seriously try and get in the way of aid, but everything's important, so everything's got its importance. You like to think that they don't take the aid plane, but they get their own private jet hired by Sky or whatever it is.
David Williams of humanitarian agency Goal has been to Haiti and shares his thoughts on this matter.
I could certainly understand why there were so many journalists there. It was the big story, and it was a catastrophe. It was a lot of human interest in it. As far as I'm aware, the media weren't, causing that many problems. If you work in disaster situations, you know that media will be there and they will be part of the situation that you have to deal with.
Do you think maybe media is astray on search and rescue type?
Yeah, certainly sometimes they can, and that's one thing you have to bear in mind. Obviously, if a media party comes over, they have to be looked after in terms of bringing them to disaster areas, to programs that you may be doing. So you're providing transport, you may have to provide communication as well. Well, I suppose you're demanding time and resource from whatever agency is dealing with media, but that's balanced again by the amount of good that comes out of that and the amount of donations that people will make because of that media coverage.
Media can also inform the public of these events. The brother of the only Irish citizen who died in Haiti first found out about the earthquake through the media. Nicholas Green, a professor of English in Trinity College Dublin, describes when he first heard about the terrible news of the earthquake, which killed his brother Andrew, a UN advisor based in Haiti.
It was the day after it happened. I was listening to the radio and I'd heard that there was an earthquake in Haiti and that the UN building had been very badly affected. And there was really nothing coming out until the word, I think, on the Saturday that the body of the head of mission and his deputy had both been found. Andrew had been at a meeting with all of the senior officers of the UN mission, and they were all in the one room. So, you know, there really, you know, there wasn't a lot of hope, but obviously, you know, until his body was found, we kept on hoping against hope. And it did seem to me a lot of the reporting was fairly sensationalist, and you know, basically not helpful.
Haiti faces its apocalypse now, and the future is just as bleak. Welcome to Haiti, hell on earth. Descent into hell. These are just some of the headlines appearing in newspapers.
They certainly are. They are sensationalist, and they have to, these superlatives, they have to find the most extreme way of describing it. It has to be said, Haiti, I mean, at that time, I can imagine it was quite hellish.
When someone says something sensationalised, I would often say, well, you know, that's the way it should be. That what you're doing is you're concentrating on individual stories, and you're making huge news out of that. If you see a person trapped in a child trapped in rubble, or a kid trapped in rubble for 13 days, and then you're reporting that, and people say, oh, you sensationalised that. I mean, that's probably the most sensational story you could imagine.
All this media coverage is an infallible tool to bring in awareness, but is there a fine line between good reporting and ratings-grabbing showmanship? Some criticism has been received over anchors jumping into action and becoming a part of the story, like this clip of CNN's Anderson Cooper carrying a wounded boy to safety.
I must say I was quite angry with CNN coverage at one point. You know, they were claiming that they had CNN doctors who went on working when the UN Medical Corps had been pulled out.
15-day-old baby, some sort of head injury. They're begging for a doctor.
And they were sort of making out that, you know, we in the CNN were so much more, you know, courageous in the face of the tragedy.
So this is what's happening out here in the streets of Port-au-Prince.
First time in Port-au-Prince, we are seeing looting. If you take a look behind me, you can see those people. They are not looking for loved ones, they're looking for items.
And sometimes reporters' lack of sensitivity was appalling, like this clip from Fox News.
Obviously someone upset about what I'm saying.
Some news reports focus on violence and looting without explaining that this behaviour is not something unique to Haiti itself. It would happen in any country hit by a massive disaster.
Looting is now the only industry here, and this is the new rush hour of Port-au-Prince. Anything will do as a weapon. A hacksaw, a stick, and of course all the machetes and guns that you can't see. It's just a foretaste of things to come.
A piece of footage that I saw on one or two news channels of a riot at a distribution, of people throwing boxes at each other.
These people aren't even vainly hoping for food. They're fighting over cardboard boxes to use as shelter.
When you panned out, it was a couple of fellas carrying on and being good-natured in what is very difficult circumstances. So definitely, I mean, I think there's always an attempt to portray people, particularly in developing countries, as some sort of savages, or responding to things in a kind of an unhuman way, and that wasn't the case.
A couple of days later, the news of the earthquake is going to turn inevitably to somebody's going to loot something, or somebody's going to get robbed, or there's anarchy in the streets. And we're very quick to pick up on that, because usually the footage is fantastic. You see people carrying 26-inch plasma TVs from whatever it is, and you think that is great footage, and because the law is broken down, you will get that, and it's inevitable because it happens. And you can think of lots of examples where the press were maybe too hard on a local community and they felt victimised or criminalised. But at the same time it happens, you have to report it, and you have to be sure to say they are a minority of people. It is lawlessness. It's not specific to that country, or it's not specific to that. It's not a national trait that they happen to be looters, because we know it's going to happen in every tragedy.
But all this coverage prompted some of the world's biggest stars to help the earthquake-stricken nation. The telethon raised £40 million, add that to other donations raised worldwide, gives a massive £2.5 billion raised for Haiti. So surely it can be said that the media are an important factor in disasters.
It's absolutely vital, and it is important to try and make it a positive partnership. People need to see the stories, otherwise you and I wouldn't know what's happening on the other side of the world if the media wasn't there to help show us.
Maybe it's we're ambulance chasers to an extent, that we then, when it's too late, then we're trying to help people, but the more coverage, the more chance it is that we'll understand how bad it is. So I think it's only a help.
Something like 230,000 people died in 7 seconds, which is, absolutely a phenomenal disaster. Because people are out there, the media, journalists are out there so quickly, it just brought home the seriousness of the situation very, very quickly. So from a general perspective, if you're talking about media in natural disasters, overall they are certainly a positive.
40 seconds doesn't seem like a lot of time, but it's more than enough to change your life. That's all it took for one earthquake to cause the deaths of 230,000 men, women and children. In 40 seconds, Haiti showed us how fragile life really is. Without warning, our lives could be different too. Because the grief and suffering of Haiti has disappeared from our TV screens, doesn't mean that the need for help is no longer there.
We must get help, because our people are dying, because we have sick people around. We need help. That's all we need.
We need to make sure that Haiti and its people are never forgotten.
Haiti, I can see you, Haiti.